Welcome. I'm here with the owner of A Frame or Two, Joanne Pope. Joanne, welcome. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for coming.
Joanne's been our official chamber framist for as long as I've been at the chamber, so about it's almost 6 years now. So we're excited to be here to kind of talk about your shop and tell us what you do here and what makes you stand out beyond other types of framing. So we brought our Oyster Festival print in from this past Oyster Festival that we always have come frame with you every year as sort of a kind of talk me through how someone would come in and do get this frame. So what would you start? How would we start this?
Well, I would usually always welcome someone to my shop, tell them I'm the owner, I'm Joanne, what is your name, right?
Right.
And they always bring stuff here, and I said, well, you have some artwork to frame. So every art has a story. So what is the story behind this? That's my first question. Okay. And then after that, I want, if you can describe to me where it might be hanging.
All right.
So those two things.
Well, so it's from the Oyster Festival, and you've done many of these for us, and we are going to hang it on, right now it's hanging on our wall at the office. When you first walk in, it'll be kind of almost the first thing you see. So kind of directly in right behind the office front area there. So
front and center.
Front and center, yes.
Okay.
And this one stands out from all of our other ones because this one was at night, and the artist Keith White's never done a night scene before, so I think just by itself it's going to be a standout piece just because of that.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, the next process that we would do after we establish the story behind the art is we mentioned that there's always options in framing. We always want to make the artwork stand out. Okay. It's never really meant to match your couch or your door pulls. It's meant to match the art. Okay. And when you combine everything together, it enhances the artwork. It doesn't argue with it, because you can do wrong compositions. But color is very personal, and this is what inspires the imagination. Mm-hmm. And people see different things in colors, but that's where it's in the custom framing. So everything we do here is full custom. We can match it to your decor, the style. We can choose the colors that you like best. So I have gone ahead, because you told me you were coming with this. Yes. I picked out a couple of different elements this gets down to your personal choice. And usually it takes about 30 minutes to go through the whole presentation. And then we narrow it down and we go through the pricing. So you have the choice of the mats, you have the choice of the glass that goes on it, and you have the choice of the frame.
Okay.
And we work within people's budgets, and we also work according to the value of the artwork.
All right.
So some things are irreplaceable.
Right.
They get special treatment. Which we can talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Because this isn't one of those, although I use mats that are lignin-free and acid-free. Mm-hmm. The term acid-free has not even been used in the framing industry for 5 or 6 years because it's really abused out in the market. Mm-hmm. So these are not only acid-free on what you see, they're acid-free all the way through, and they're lignin-free, which means they're made from wood pulp, so obviously it's going to deteriorate over time. The worst value or the worst quality of the mats will deteriorate on the artwork. Oh. So when people bring them in and they say, well, I had this frame 30 years ago, I usually always know because the mats, the bevels will not be white. They won't be white like this, like that.
Oh, yeah.
They will be brown, or they will be molded.
Oh, wow.
And
I've
so,
seen some of those probably in some old family photos
yes,
in my house.
Yeah. Well, when the matte edges start turning the color of that cardboard there, you know you got a problem. So we deal with mats that don't deteriorate like that. It's a bit of an upscale from the cheaper products, but we have a motto: we make your memories last.
All right.
So we use products that are adequate and comparable for the value of the art.
So what colors did you pull out for us today?
Okay. Well, it fits right in these little crevices right here. So it'll kind of go right in there.
And maybe this one.
Now with the prints, we usually leave a little bit of the white border because we are going to leave the title here.
Right.
Right. And this is just a more of a neutral color, and that'll go in basically any decor. Now this frame here, I pulled out because it matches the trees.
Oh, that's pretty.
And it's
it's kind of almost got the same ridges in there.
Right, it's got, and so it brings out the artwork but doesn't compete with it.
Right.
That's always a that's always the biggest part.
And you have this one as
And this
well.
one is more contemporary, and it also, you know, would work with the frame.
Now,
It's
do
just
you-
much smoother, much more
Do
contemporary.
you always recommend a double mat? Kind of a
I always
double?
do, sometimes triples. I pulled out a lighter colored mat here, but it was arguing with it, so your eye stopped right there. So this kind of is adequate. This is good.
So what happens after we've, all right, let's say, I kind of like this one, I think, because I
Okay.
really like the way, and I like the lighter color outside. So what happens
Okay.
next after we've picked out our mat and our frame? So we
All
leave
right.
it with you and then we come back for it, or how's
Well,
the
we
process?
usually work in about a 10-day window. So I order the mats, and they're all custom ordered
Okay.
and custom framed. Sometimes people have concerns about where they're going to hang it, the
Right.
spaces, and that will determine how wide the mats are. The companies that make these mats, they're always 4 inches, but the mats come as big as a table, so
Right.
we customize them and cut them to fit.
So you alluded earlier about preservation framing. Can you tell me what the difference is between just something that I brought in like this that's, you know, mass produced?
Well, this is a limited edition print, so it's going to get a little bit special treatment, but not full
Right.
bore. So when we have something that is priceless, like needle art that your great grandmother did, I've done gobs of those things. Marriage certificates from the 1800s, property deeds. I've done Civil War documentations and things. And so when we deal with those types of things that are either materially providentially expensive or they're irreplaceable in terms of the person that did them is deceased, something
Right.
like that. So we switch from the acid-free, lignin-free mat boards to mat boards that are 100% cotton through and through.
Okay.
And they don't ever deteriorate in the frame. And they'll be, you know, bevel cut like that.
Yeah.
So anything that is, this is the part that will touch the art. And this is what we use. We mount them on thicker mounting boards, which are also 100% cotton instead of foam core.
Okay.
So the actual artwork gets put right on here, and then the mats go in the top. And
And you don't use any special glues or anything like that.
preservation framing, yeah, the definition of preservation framing is that the state of the original art is not altered in any way. You don't use tapes or glues. It depends on what it is. When it's needle art, it will get mounted to a sturdy board like that. If it's a magazine, like we did over there, it will get wrapped up. No tapes, no glues, no hinges. And the purpose of that is if it ever needs to be taken apart again, there won't be any changes at all to the original artwork. So you don't even put glues. Even when you're taking a photo or a picture or a marriage certificate, like I mentioned, you don't hinge it with
Right.
glue. It goes in a different process.
What's an interesting piece that you've done before that you found kind of maybe challenging or interesting? Because I know you and I talked about
Yes,
some of
I've
those.
done lots of them. This was a couple years ago. This person brought in some hand-carved whalebone clothespins.
Whalebone clothespins.
They were actual whalebone
Oh.
from the 1850s that a Native American had carved from the outside waters of Alaska, somewhere beyond the Kodiak Islands.
Oh, wow.
And there was clothespins and a whistle and a pizza cutter, all hand carved out of whalebone. That required a lot of, because they were objects, they weren't flat, they were
Right.
three-dimensional. So it does challenge the preservation capacity to keep them really preservation. But we have very special little tools. Those got wrapped with little pieces, little skinny pieces of this polypropylene. It's what the Smithsonian uses to mount things. And so they weren't glued or taped or
Oh, wow.
they sat on the back of the mounting board, and you could see them in like a shadow box,
Yeah,
right?
very cool.
Yeah. So that was one of the most unique things that I have ever done. Those hand
And you
carved
do
whalebones.
and you do everything in your shop here.
We do
You
everything
have-
here.
this
We
is
cut
your-
the glass, we cut the mats, we put the frames together, we customize them for all the people, and we we really want them to look much better when they go out than when they come in. So that's a goal too. And respect the personal choices of the colors and the things like that. When it comes to the preservation framing, it takes a little more education. So we spend a little bit more time. And I have a lot of samples to show people what's involved, because cosmetically you would not see the difference between something that was framed wrong and something that was framed with preservation in mind. It's not about the frame in that particular instance. That's where it's about the art itself.
And I think that's where you stand out as a framer, is that you take the time to know the difference in those, and you have special certificates and,
Yes.
education to help you know what the most trending thing is for those type of things. Is that right?
Yes. I am a certified picture framer, and it's part of the Professional Picture Framers Association. And it requires a solid 6 to 9 months of study. 13 different study books have to go into the consideration of the preservation framing. And there's a lot of challenges when it comes to personal shadow boxes, memory boxes, because they can put objects in there along with artwork, or prints along with needle art, objects. I've done a train track, actually a part of a train track, and he had a little tiny train on it. You know, there's just all kinds of things to make them very personal. I did a wedding gown that was recycled from this woman's great-great-grandmother. They recycled it, and the woman that brought it in, her daughter used it as her christening gown. So we put that in the shadow box with the picture of her grandmother in that dress, and then the picture of the little girl in the dress as well, with the booties and the hat and the whole thing. So it was very touching. That kind of thing is very touching.
So Joanne, if people want to find you, what is the best way to reach out to you?
Well, I'm at 6810 Beach Drive, which is halfway between the two lights in Ocean Isle. That's what they call the causeway and the light there. And then I have a website, which is aframer2.com. And this is where I have quite a bit of information in there on the aspects of preservation framing. But this is my 20th year, so I've been doing this a while. And so they can check that out.
How about your phone number?
That is 910, of course, 575-7567.
Wonderful. Again, thank you again, Joanne.
Thank you for coming.